What happens after the last breath? Does the self simply vanish into nothingness, or does it pass through portals beyond anything we can imagine? Welcome, soul traveler, to one of life's greatest mysteries. Today, we are going to explore one of the most profound and mysterious texts in Tibetan Buddhism, the Bardo, which is better known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This text is unlike any ordinary guide. It doesn't just talk about death, it offers a map for what comes immediately after the body ceases to function. Think of it as a spiritual companion, walking alongside the consciousness during the most critical and confusing moments of existence. It is a guide for the living and the dead alike, designed to provide clarity, comfort, and even a chance at liberation. The Bardo was created by Padmasambhava, a legendary figure in Tibetan Buddhism. Born in India, he is celebrated as the one who brought Buddhism to Tibet during the 8th century. Tibetan tradition honors him with the title Guru Rinpoche, meaning precious master. Padmasambhava was not only a monk, he was a master of deep spiritual practices, a yogi who had achieved remarkable mystical abilities. The purpose of the Bardo was born from his compassion. He wanted to guide people not only in life, but beyond it, offering a path to freedom from suffering even after death. From his youth, Padmasambhava displayed extraordinary spiritual power. He was recognized as a Mahasiddha, someone who achieves a very high level of spiritual realization and possesses siddhis, or miraculous abilities. His reputation spread far and wide, and he was eventually invited to Tibet by King Trisong Detsen. The king wanted to strengthen Buddhism in his country and unify the people under a common spiritual path. At that time, Tibet was dominated by Bon, the indigenous spiritual tradition, which included shamanic practices and animist beliefs. These traditions were deeply rooted in the culture, and the arrival of Buddhism was met with resistance. Local deities and spirits were said to oppose the new teachings. Padmasambhava, however, was skilled in tantric rituals and mystical practices. He worked to tame these spirits and integrate them into Buddhist practice, ensuring that the teachings could take root. This approach allowed for a spiritual system that was both new and respectful of Tibetan culture. Padmasambhava also established Tibet's first Buddhist monastery, Samye Monastery, where he began teaching about the mind, reality, and the cycle of existence known as samsara. He understood that death is not an end but a transition, a moment when the mind can be especially receptive to deeper truths. Free from the distractions of the physical body, the consciousness enters a state where it can recognize its true nature. Yet he also knew that most people, at the time of death, are overwhelmed by fear and illusion. They often fail to see this opportunity for liberation. To help, he created the Bardo, which could be recited for someone who is dying or studied in life to prepare the mind for the transition. His goal was to ease suffering, provide guidance, and open a doorway to enlightenment, even in the face of uncertainty. Central to Padmasambhava's teachings was the idea that death is a unique opportunity. Even if someone did not achieve enlightenment in life, the moment of passing offers a chance for liberation. The Bardo provides instructions for recognizing the clear light, the pure essence of the mind, which appears at death. For those who can see this light, it is the ultimate revelation, offering freedom from the cycle of birth and death. For those who cannot, the guide prepares them to navigate the challenges that follow. His compassion shines through every word of this teaching. He understood that life alone may not offer everyone the opportunity for liberation, but death could be a final doorway. The text introduces the idea of 3 main states, or Bardos, that every consciousness passes through. The first of these is the Chikai Bardo, the moment of death itself. This is the point where the body dissolves and the mind becomes free from its physical limitations. In this state, the consciousness encounters the primordial clear light, a dazzling and pure radiance. This light is described as the absolute nature of the mind, a state beyond duality, fear, or attachment. It is called the higher self or solar mind, and it represents infinite peace. For those who recognize it, liberation is immediate. For those unprepared, the light can feel terrifying, prompting the mind to retreat. The Chikai Bardo sets the stage for what follows, showing how the mind's preparation, awareness, and detachment determine the path forward. This is the moment when liberation is possible, a moment where all conditioning, karma, and identity can dissolve if the consciousness is ready. It is both the most critical and the most challenging stage because it requires clarity, courage, and the ability to see beyond fear and attachment. After the moment of death in the Chikai Bardo, the consciousness enters the next stage, known as the Chanyad Bardo, the Bardo of visions. In this state, the soul exists without a physical body and moves through a realm where ordinary boundaries no longer apply. It is a space shaped entirely by the mind, where projections and visions emerge in vivid, undeniable clarity. Everything the soul has accumulated, emotions, desires, fears, and attachments, surfaces in forms that can be both beautiful and frightening. In this stage, the mind experiences itself directly, free from the distractions and limitations of the physical world. The visions that appear are not random. They are reflections of the soul's inner state, projections of the unconscious. As Carl Gustav Jung described when he said that gods and demons are parts of ourselves that remain hidden until understood. These visions reveal the truth about who we are and what has shaped us over our lives. The Chanyad Bardo is divided into two main types of visions, peaceful and wrathful. The peaceful visions present benevolent figures, deities, or Buddhas radiating light and compassion. These images embody the positive qualities the soul has cultivated over lifetimes. They offer reassurance, calm, and the possibility of recognition and release. For a prepared consciousness, these peaceful visions can guide the soul toward understanding its true nature and attaining liberation. However, for those unprepared, these visions may seem confusing, overwhelming, or even incomprehensible. The mind may fail to recognize their essence, retreating into doubt or fear, which then leads to the more intense stage of wrathful visions. The wrathful visions are intense and often terrifying. They are not external demons or evil forces but manifestations of the mind itself. They appear as monstrous forms, fierce deities, or chaotic energies, reflecting anger, fear, repressed desires, and attachments that have not been resolved in life. These visions can be overwhelming for the untrained mind, creating fear, panic, or even denial. Yet in Tibetan Buddhism, this stage is understood as an essential opportunity. The soul is shown the raw, unfiltered content of its mind, offering a chance to confront, understand, and ultimately transcend these patterns. Recognition is the key. By understanding that these visions are projections of the mind, the soul can remain unattached and see them as temporary and empty, a concept known as shunyata or emptiness. During the Chanyad Bardo, the mind experiences a state of heightened clarity and intensity. Unlike dreams, which can be hazy and fleeting, the visions in this stage are vivid, often overwhelming, and extremely detailed. This is because the consciousness, now free from the physical body, experiences its own energies directly. Emotions, memories, and karmic imprints rise to the surface with remarkable power. Every suppressed thought, every unfulfilled desire, every fear accumulated over lifetimes can appear, creating a mental landscape that is both dazzling and intimidating. This is the soul's chance to face itself fully. Those who maintain awareness and remain focused can recognize that all these projections, whether peaceful or wrathful, are creations of their own mind. This recognition dissolves fear and attachment, guiding the soul toward liberation. The Bardo Thodol emphasizes that the clear light, first encountered in the Chikai Bardo, is also the key in the Chanyad Bardo. Even amidst overwhelming visions, the soul can focus on this light, which represents the true, unchanging nature of consciousness. It is the foundation of the mind, pure and eternal, untouched by illusions. Recognizing this light amidst the projections is what allows the soul to achieve freedom. However, fear and attachment are the greatest obstacles. The intensity of the visions can provoke deep fear, especially in the wrathful stage. This fear can make the soul feel separated from its own nature and prevent it from seeing the projections as temporary and unreal. Similarly, attachment to the peaceful visions can trap the soul, keeping it tied to familiar or comforting illusions instead of moving toward liberation. To navigate the Chanyad Bardo successfully, Tibetan teachings recommend preparation during life. Through meditation, reflection, and awareness practices, one trains the mind to recognize its own nature and detach from illusions. This practice strengthens the capacity to remain calm and centered during the intense experiences of the Bardo. By maintaining awareness and understanding the nature of these visions, the consciousness can recognize them as expressions of its own mind, allowing it to remain free and unattached. In this way, the Chanyad Bardo is not punishment or suffering, it is an opportunity for learning, reflection, and ultimate liberation. It is a mirror that reveals the mind in its most raw and powerful form. Those who see through the illusions of both peaceful and wrathful visions can maintain focus on the clear light, the essence of their being, and move closer to freedom from the cycle of birth and death. After the Chanyad Bardo, the soul enters the final stage known as the Sidpa Bardo, or the Bardo of Rebirth. This stage is the culmination of the journey after death, where the soul encounters the crucial process of choosing its next life. Unlike the previous stages, where the focus was on recognition and awareness, the Sidpa Bardo revolves around the consequences of actions, the energy carried forward, and the instinctive pull toward rebirth. It is here that the accumulated energy of thoughts, intentions, and deeds, known as karma, begins to shape the next phase of existence. Everything the soul has experienced in the previous bardos, the encounter with the clear light, the visions of peaceful and wrathful deities, prepares it for this moment. In the Sidpa Bardo, the consciousness is drawn toward a new body. This is not a conscious decision in the way we make choices in life. It is an instinctive, automatic process guided by the energy patterns accumulated over past lives. These karmic impressions act like magnets, attracting the soul to conditions that match its internal state. For example, if a soul carries strong fear, it may be drawn to a life where fear dominates, providing opportunities to face and learn from it. Similarly, desires and attachments pull the soul toward experiences that reflect them. The soul's tendencies, emotional patterns, and unresolved issues act as invisible forces, shaping the circumstances of its next existence. The Sidpa Bardo is described in vivid imagery in the Bardo Thodol. One common depiction involves visions of couples or union, symbolic representations of the creative forces that initiate new life. The soul, drawn by these images, moves instinctively toward rebirth. At this point, awareness becomes crucial. The text advises that if the consciousness can remain detached and clear, it may recognize these visions as manifestations of its own mind rather than as absolute reality. This recognition offers the possibility of transcendence. Instead of being swept blindly into a new life, the soul can choose liberation, merging with the clear light and ending the cycle of birth and death. Yet, for most beings, attachment, fear, and ignorance make it difficult to stay centered. The pull of rebirth can feel irresistible, like a storm of energy guiding the soul toward a new form. The mind, driven by habit, fear, and desire, may fail to see that the circumstances of the next life are not random. They reflect the soul's own unresolved tendencies. This is the moment when life and death are deeply connected, revealing a profound truth. Every rebirth is shaped by what we carry inside. What we cultivate in thought, intention, and action resonates beyond a single lifetime, influencing the conditions we encounter again and again. The Bardo thought emphasizes that preparation during life greatly affects this stage. Spiritual practices such as meditation, contemplation of death, and self-reflection help the mind become aware of its own desires and attachments. By understanding these patterns, the soul is better able to navigate the pull of rebirth and avoid being trapped by illusions. Awareness and detachment are essential for recognizing that the process of choosing a new body is not the ultimate reality. Instead, it is a stage in a larger cycle, a chance for growth, understanding, and liberation. Those who can see beyond their instincts and attachments may avoid rebirth altogether, merging with the clear light and achieving ultimate freedom. In the Sitpa Bardo, the soul experiences both attraction and resistance. The pull toward rebirth is often strong, fueled by instinctive drives and karmic momentum. At the same time, there is the possibility of recognition, of seeing that all forms and visions are temporary and empty in nature. This recognition is liberation itself, the final opportunity to release the cycle of suffering and rebirth. The choices made in this stage are subtle, guided by the mind's deepest tendencies rather than conscious reasoning. This reflects the Buddhist view that rebirth is not a punishment or reward, but a natural consequence of accumulated actions, a reflection of inner reality. Ultimately, the Sitpa Bardo shows that life, death, and rebirth are interconnected. The cycle of existence is not random. It mirrors the patterns within consciousness. By cultivating awareness, detachment, and understanding during life, one can navigate death and rebirth with clarity, reducing fear and increasing the possibility of liberation. The Bardo thought teaches that preparation is key. Death is not the end, but a transition, and how we live affects the quality of this passage. Liberation is possible at every stage, but only if the mind recognizes its own nature and releases the attachments that keep it bound. The Sitpa Bardo, therefore, is both a challenge and an opportunity, a final doorway where the soul can either continue in the cycle of rebirth or merge with the ultimate essence of consciousness, free from all illusion and limitation. The Bardo thought is not only a guide for what happens after death, it is also a manual for living. The experiences described in the Bardos show us the mind in its rawest form and teach the importance of preparation long before the final breath. Tibetan teachings emphasize that by cultivating awareness, clarity, and detachment during life, we strengthen the mind for the moments of transition. Meditation, reflection, and practices that examine desires, fears, and attachments are essential. They help the mind become familiar with its own nature, making it more capable of recognizing the clear light when death arrives. The clearer and more detached the mind becomes in life, the less likely it is to be overwhelmed by fear or confusion during the Bardos. A central lesson of the Bardo thought is the recognition of the clear light. This light appears at death and reappears throughout the Bardos, representing the true nature of consciousness. It is beyond identity, beyond thought, and beyond attachment. For those who can focus on this light, liberation is possible immediately. The text emphasizes that this experience does not depend on rituals, doctrines, or beliefs. It is a direct, undeniable recognition of the mind's essence, a pure and unconditional consciousness. For spiritual practitioners, Learning to recognize the clear light during life is the key to easing fear and gaining clarity at the moment of death. In practical terms, this means training the mind to observe without clinging. Life presents countless distractions, attachments, and fears, and most of these continue into death. By practicing detachment and mindfulness while alive, we reduce the likelihood of being swept away by illusions in the Bardos. The Bardo thought instructs that even the most intense visions, whether peaceful or wrathful, should be recognized as projections of the mind itself. Nothing outside the consciousness can harm it. This understanding is empowering because it places the responsibility for liberation squarely within our own awareness. No external ritual or guide can replace the clarity and insight of a prepared mind. The text also reminds us that fear is one of the greatest obstacles. In the Chaniad and Sitpa Bardos, the intensity of visions can provoke panic, anxiety, and confusion. The wrathful deities, representing unresolved anger, desire, and attachment, can appear terrifying. For an untrained mind, these visions may seem real, causing the soul to flee or cling to comforting illusions, leading to further rebirth. Understanding that these are temporary projections, part of the mind's own creation, allows the soul to remain centered. This is the practical application of shunyata, or emptiness, one of the core principles of Tibetan Buddhism. Recognizing the empty nature of visions prevents the soul from becoming trapped in illusions, enabling liberation even in the most challenging moments. The Bardo Thodol also teaches that death is not a single moment but a process. Preparation in life allows for smoother navigation of this process. Contemplating mortality regularly, reflecting on the nature of the mind, and practicing meditation help the consciousness remain aware during the transition. Awareness reduces attachment and fear, strengthens insight, and enables recognition of the clear light. The text encourages students to live with consciousness of death, not as a morbid obsession, but as a way to train the mind for the inevitable. By understanding the processes of the Bardos, we can approach death with courage, clarity, and even compassion. Compassion is another key theme. Padmasambhava created the Bardo Thodol out of deep care for all beings. He understood that death can be confusing, terrifying, and isolating. The guide is meant to ease suffering and open a path to liberation. For those accompanying someone who is dying, reciting, or contemplating, the teachings can help the passing person focus, recognize the clear light, and navigate the Bardos more safely. The text also offers hope for those who may not have achieved spiritual realization in life. Death is seen as a final opportunity, a moment when the mind is more receptive, when the distractions of the physical world are gone, and when recognition of the mind's true nature can lead to ultimate freedom. Ultimately, Part 4 of this journey emphasizes that the teachings of the Bardo Thodol are not just about what happens after death. They are a map for understanding the mind, for preparing for life, and for cultivating awareness, detachment, and compassion. They invite reflection on our fears, attachments, and desires, encouraging a life lived with consciousness and clarity. In this way, the text is both a spiritual guide and a practical tool, offering insight into the mysteries of existence and providing steps for navigating the unknown. The practices it outlines are meant to make the soul resilient, focused, and capable of recognizing the light that is always present, even when all else seems uncertain. As we reach the final part of this journey, it becomes clear that the Bardo Thodol is more than a guide for death. It is a mirror for life itself. Death, as the text teaches, is the great full stop of our human story, yet it also opens the door to new beginnings. The experiences described in the Bardos reveal the mind in its rawest and most profound form, showing that consciousness continues, moves, and transforms beyond the physical body. The stages of Chikai, Chanyad, and Sidpa Bardos illustrate the possibilities of recognition, liberation, or rebirth, but they also reflect the choices and patterns that shape our lives even now. By contemplating these teachings, we are invited to live with awareness, courage, and compassion, understanding that every thought, action, and attachment leaves an imprint that can affect the journey beyond death. The Bardo Thodol teaches that the ultimate goal is liberation, recognition of the clear light, understanding the projections of the mind, and transcending attachment and fear lead to freedom from the cycle of rebirth. This cycle, or samsara, is not a punishment but a natural consequence of karma, the energy left by our actions, intentions, and desires. Each life, each moment, shapes the conditions of the next. By living consciously, we can reduce suffering, prepare the mind for transition, and increase the chance of liberation. This is the deeper purpose behind the teachings, not to instill fear, but to provide guidance and hope. Even those who have lived without spiritual practice are offered a final opportunity through the process of death, where the distractions of the body are gone and the mind can encounter its true essence. Reflection and preparation are central to these teachings. The Bardo Thodol encourages meditation on mortality, contemplation of one's attachments, and recognition of desires and fears while still alive. These practices strengthen the mind, making it resilient in the face of the Bardo's visions. They cultivate the ability to remain detached, to observe without clinging, and to focus on the clear light when it appears. This preparation is both practical and spiritual. It allows the consciousness to navigate death with clarity, to see the illusions for what they are, and to maintain awareness even in the most intense or frightening circumstances. Those who practice in life are better equipped to face death without fear, recognizing that liberation is always possible if the mind can remain centered and detached. Compassion and guidance are also emphasized. Padmasambhava created the Bardo Thodol not only for those who are dying, but also for those who accompany them. The recitation of the text, or even its study during life, provides support, clarity, and direction. It is a compassionate gift, offering a roadmap through what can otherwise be a confusing and fearful passage. The teachings remind us that death is not something to dread, but an integral part of existence. It is a transformative process where the mind has the chance to encounter its own essence, to release what binds it, and to recognize the truth that underlies all life. Ultimately, the Tibetan Book of the Dead invites us to reflect on life as much as on death. Ram Dass famously said that when we die, only one question matters: how much did we love? In this light, the Bardo Thodol is a call to live fully, consciously, and compassionately. By understanding the processes that occur after death, we gain insight into the patterns of our mind, the nature of attachment, and the opportunities for liberation that exist in every moment. It is an invitation to examine our lives, confront our fears, release illusions, and cultivate clarity, love, and awareness. The teachings of the Bardo Thodol also remind us that the journey does not end with death. Whether one attains liberation, encounters the clear light, or moves toward rebirth, the consciousness continues. Every choice, every recognition, and every insight influences the path forward. The cycle of life, death, and rebirth is interconnected, reflecting the profound truth that our experiences, intentions, and understanding shape not only this life but the next. By contemplating these teachings, we are encouraged to live with mindfulness, to prepare for the inevitable, and to seek liberation through awareness and understanding. In the end, the Bardo Thodol is a guide to self-knowledge, a mirror of the mind, and a map for our spiritual journey. It shows that death is both a conclusion and a beginning, that liberation is always within reach, and that the mind's recognition of its true nature is the key to freedom. By preparing in life, practicing detachment, and cultivating awareness, we can approach death with clarity, courage, and compassion. In doing so, we not only face the final journey more peacefully, but also learn to live more fully, understanding that life, death, and consciousness are deeply interconnected, and that the ultimate mystery is not something to fear, but something to embrace.